Happy Monday, hockey fans. I hope everyone was able to successfully get through their weekend with no hockey, but welcome into a fresh week here on Daily Faceoff Live. The show, as always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We're streaming live on the DFO YouTube, as always, looking for your inbox questions. And as always, I'm joined by Frank Seravalli. Frank, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How's Florida treating you, Florida man?
It is very, very hot outside, but you know me, being the softest individual working in hockey media, it's too cold inside for me now. I wish I would have brought a sweater.
So the glass cutters are out, and Tyler's excited for hockey. Let's go.
I am excited for hockey, especially considering what we saw on Friday night. Really what we've seen through, what would you call it, 9 periods of action so far in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I believe that math is pretty close to being accurate. We're obviously going to talk a lot of Stanley Cup final today. John Goins is going to swing by with the coach's room, give us a bit of a tactical breakdown of the first 2 games of this series. We'll talk a little offseason. But Frank, let's go back to Friday night. And I heard you talking this morning, obviously, on the DFO rundown, saying Game 2 of the Stanley Cup final might have been one of the best games you've ever covered.
Yeah, definitely one of the best games I've had the privilege of seeing live. I mean, it had just about everything that you could want. The latest game-tying goal in Stanley Cup final history, 99 hits, 9 goals, and really just the drama. And I mean, think about this series from an alternate universe. Well, I can give you a couple different alternate universes. One, the Florida Panthers are 1 bounce away in game 1 from being up 2-0. And they had a lead in both of those games when it was crunch time. And 2, the Oilers are 1 bounce away in OT from being up 2-0 and having a record in history of 50-5 all-time teams that are up 2-0 in a Stanley Cup final. 91% chance to win a Stanley Cup. And yet this series shifts back to South Florida for the first time, and it feels like it's a true toss-up, like it's anyone's game. And that's the significance of how important Game 2 was, tilting in either direction.
Yeah, it was, again, we talked about it before the game on our show Friday, but like it's weird that Game 2 felt like such a big swing game. Usually that's reserved for Game 4 or even Game 5 of a series, but it really had that kind of feel to it. And I mean, again, you can go through a whole bunch of what ifs. That's kind of what our whole job here is. But what if the Florida Panthers had not gone out and acquired Brad Marchand, Frank? I think they probably would still be in the Stanley Cup final, and that's not to take anything away from how good Marchand was earlier on in these playoffs, but the Panthers were a wagon. They were rolling. The Florida Panthers, without Brad Marchand, are probably down 2-0 in this Cup final.
Yeah, and that's why this segment is appropriately entitled The Rat Effect, because it hasn't come from Matthew Tkachuk. It hasn't come from some of the other significant members of this series. I mean, think about how Game 2 played out. Game winner, Brad Marchand in OT. Game tying goal, Corey Perry. Those are the guys that are scurrying around that are incredibly difficult to kill at age 37 and 40 in this series, that there's a reason why they're so valuable and still relied upon, is because when it matters most, they find a way to show up and do damage. They are willing to get to the areas that things happen and Stanley Cups are won. And I love the connection with them too. Michael Russo had a great story in The Athletic over the weekend about the connection. Sean Thornton, the Panthers president of business ops, he won a Stanley Cup with both of those 2 guys. One in Anaheim with Corey Perry, and the other in Boston with Brad Marchand. And now, of course, with the Panthers, has a front row seat to watching it all and has some skin in the game. So it's been an amazing journey for both these guys. And you look at Marchand and just his stick-to-itiveness. Anyone thinking that this guy was going to just be a decent little trade chip that's going to chip in a goal here or there and a nice little playoff run and sail off into the sunset doesn't know a guy who has a ton of drive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. You don't know Brad Marchand. He's been massive so far in this series, Frank. And now as things shift to the Sunshine State for games 3 and 4, I guess I can start with a couple of lineup notes, things that were happening just behind me on the ice here at Amarant Bank Arena earlier on. AJ Greer is expected to make his Stanley Cup final debut tonight for the Florida Panthers. So he is healthy and ready to go for the Oilers. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was a big question mark. He was on the ice kind of gingerly skating around, really didn't appear to be going all that hard. Jeff Skinner kind of did push himself a little bit. So again, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins questionable for tonight's game. Jeff Skinner would be the likely one to draw in if RNH cannot go. But I wanted to ask you about the Florida perspective a little bit here as they maybe look to put their foot down in this cup final now that they're back on home ice. And, there's a couple of interesting names that have kind of struggled through 2 games in this final. Matt Tkachuk, I think we can kind of look and go, oh, that's injuries. But Alexander Barkov's the other one, Frank. He's just looked a little out of place. Do you think there might be something nagging him, or do you think the Panthers could maybe see Barkov have a bit of a resurgence here now that it's back on home ice?
I would bet on a resurgence. I mean, this is a guy that for the first 2 games of this series has looked a step and a half slow, which is really surprising because even if he's not the most blazing fast skater on the planet, his mind works so fast that he's still usually 2 to 3 steps ahead of his opposition and things balance each other out. I think part of it has been a matchup game. I think the Oilers using their last change, they just roll lines, but they've been victimized a little bit by Barkov. Like Barkov has been victimized by the matchup game. And now as this series shifts to Florida, I think a real advantage for Paul Maurice to try and change things up, to try and get away from that if at all possible and put him in a position where he can create and thrive on the ice for 0 even strength goals, 4 so far in the first 2 games. Put it on your star players for sure, but also maybe create something, an environment that's a little bit different that allows you to make some adjustments and then take off. Because if he is able to create, the Florida Panthers are going to be in a great spot.
Yeah, they are. Again, you have a 1-1 series with, call him your best forward. I know Sam Bennett's been on an unbelievable run in these playoffs, but like your best forward, you could say with Tkachuk, your best 2 forwards really have been zeros so far in this cup final. And I think that does, again, lend to those guys, or Barkov specifically, is not going to be quiet for an entire cup final. He should get going eventually. It's a game of adjustments. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love the line from Paul Maurice this morning at Morning Skate when asked about Barkov's tough start to the series. He said, "We're trading him."
He's had a couple like that, like when they lost 3-0 against Carolina, and they were like, "Oh, what'd you think of Bobrovsky?" He's like, "The last 2, he was horrible on it." It's like they were both empty netters. Paul Maurice always quick-witted. Just one more on the Oilers. They could be adjusting their D pairings a little bit tonight. Kulak, Nurse got caught out a lot, especially in overtime, guilty of a whole bunch of icings. Seems like that Oilers coaching staff might make a change, but Chris Knobloch throughout this playoff run has also been someone who isn't afraid to throw a couple curveballs out there, go with something totally different in morning skate than he actually plans on doing in the game. So a whole bunch of storylines to watch as we head into game 3. More on that coming up later on with John Goyens, Frank, but I wanted to play a little smoke, fire, false alarm. And let's start out in Dallas. The Dallas Stars coaching search, Frank, there was a list of candidates out there: Jay Woodcroft, Todd Nelson, Glenn Galt, a whole bunch of names have been floating around. Any of them getting smoky, or is it a lot of false alarms right now?
I think false alarm because it's still so relatively fresh. One name that I haven't heard talked a lot about that I think would be an unbelievable fit in Dallas is Peter Laviolette. He's a guy that has had a ton of success early in his tenure with teams. And the message, I think, gets a little bit stale, maybe even more quickly than most. But when you've taken 3 different franchises to the Stanley Cup final and you're the Dallas Stars and you're trying to get over the hump and you're going to be making some changes, that's a guy who has found playoff magic and done it repeatedly to the point where it's not an accident and it's not just the players, that he definitely most positively has a hand in that as well. I've seen it up close and personal, was with and covered the Flyers in 2010 when they went on their run, and was at the Stanley Cup final when he took the Nashville Predators there. Of course, he won with the Carolina Hurricanes. So I'm not making any predictions, but I wouldn't be surprised to see some smoke there at some point in the near future.
Yourself and Jason Greger talked about the Dallas Stars a lot today on the DFO Rundown. So if people want to go really in depth on that, they can find the rundown wherever they get their podcast from. But just quickly, because I know it'll come up in the chat if I don't ask you now, the Jason Robertson thing, do you lean more smoke or false alarm on those rumblings?
I would lean more towards smoke.
Okay. So they're, again, you talked about it earlier, they're probably going to have to ask some pretty big questions in the Big D this summer. Frank, I've been waiting to ask you about Rasmus Andersson for, I think, like 10 straight shows now, but every single show, something just comes up and we get derailed. There's some breaking news. So let me ask you about the idea of Rasmus Andersson being traded by the draft. Is that smoke, fire, or false alarm?
I think it is smoke. I think the Calgary Flames are in a spot where they are open to lots of different things. I think they realize that Rasmus Andersson for the long haul is probably going to be too expensive and too long term for their liking. And I think when you consider the season that he had, yes, hitting double-digit goals again, but really kind of average by his own standards, I'm wondering if the best play here is, if you're not getting exactly what you're looking for, just hang on to him. Trade him at the deadline. I don't think his value is going to be any better to the Calgary Flames now than it will be if he has an excellent start to the season and he is the it guy when it comes to the playoffs. Right shot guy, consistent, or certainly has the capability to be a consistent double-digit goal scorer from the back end. Like, I don't think his value at all is going to go down if you decide to hang on to him. So I think there's a chance to even have a better start to the year and get more from him, and also put your team in a position to succeed, but go into the season knowing that whether you're in the playoffs or not, or if you're on the cusp, that either way, you're trading him and you're not going to get lost on the idea that, oh man, what if we use him to sneak into the playoffs this year as an own rental? That doesn't work. So as long as you know that that's the plan going in and you stick with it, then I think that's perhaps, provided that you don't get exactly what you're looking for, the best course of action.
It's fascinating to see how the defensive market will kind of shape up here, because, you know, you look at the free agents and Gavrikov, Provorov, those are both certainly intriguing names, but I mean, at least all the rumblings I'm kind of reading are like, oh, they're probably pretty likely to maybe just be in LA and be in Columbus again. And you have Aaron Ekblad, who I don't know if he's the guy who you'd look at as a premier free agent. He's looked real slow in the Stanley Cup finals. Like the idea that the trade market could get hot and some team sits there and goes, we don't like any of the options on the free agent market. Let's just pay the price that Calgary wants us to pay. Or even if you're looking for a lefty, a guy like Jamie Alexiak, like those markets actually could be pretty hot.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think they all offer something a little bit different too. So it's really going to be about fit and style as well.
All right, let's do our offseason preview here, Frank. It's focused on the St. Louis Blues today and obviously last summer. And it's fitting this week because I know we're going to talk offer sheets later on in one of our big segments on Tuesday or Wednesday. But the Blues made that big splash. The offer sheets, Holloway, Broberg. It was a stroke of genius by Doug Armstrong. It doesn't lead to a whole bunch of playoff success, though. They lose in round one to the Winnipeg Jets. So let's just start with, what's the main priority here for Doug Armstrong? Because I remember at the deadline, there were the Braden Schenn rumblings. There are Justin Falk rumblings. Like, will Rutherford still be looking to tinker, maybe move out some money here in the offseason?
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be about moving out money. I think it's about finding a better balance between young and vet. And that's the thing to me that seems to be plaguing the Blues, is that they're kind of stuck in the middle. I really wonder, and his name hasn't popped out there at all, and this is just my own speculation, is this a moment in time where we could see, since Doug Armstrong is willing to entertain just about anything, would he be willing to move Jordan Kyrou? His no trade clause kicks in on July 1st. So if you have any interest in moving on, it would be now. And what kind of value could you get in return? Because the way I look at it, Jimmy Snuggerud is really well positioned to step in and do a lot of what Jordan Kyrou already does. And so if that's the case, you've got a young player with tons of expectations, obviously, on his shoulders, and that's a lot of pressure. But what could you bring back that could better balance out your team? So to me, I think it's a really interesting discussion point. Not saying it's going to happen by any stretch, But this is a team that had made some really smart moves last year. You mentioned the offer sheets, but the trade for Cam Fowler was excellent and great value. Bringing in Jim Montgomery was one of the top decisions that anyone made across the sport last year, deciding to fire your coach in order to make it happen. It was a move made with conviction. And that's something that has been the hallmark of Doug Armstrong's career as a manager.
I was nodding along with you as you went into that point there because I thought you were going to say Jordan Binnington, Frank, and that was my next question. Like, there was a point not that many off seasons ago, it might have even been last summer, where it's like, man, could they even get rid of Jordan Binnington if they tried? And the $6 million, he was coming off a bad year. Joel Hofer's putting in some really, really good numbers. Is there anything to the idea that they have a goaltending decision to make, or do they like their duo?
I think the duo works. I think it's not overpaid. And I think when you see Jordan Binnington have a Four Nations face-off like he did, able to carry the mail in pressure-packed moments, he's got big game written all over him, even if the consistency isn't always what you want it to be and the high-end nature of his game isn't what you want it to be. If you're only spending $6, $7, $8 million total on your tandem, it's a pretty good fit, less than 10% of your cap. So I don't see the need to bleep with happy.
Fair enough. All right, let's keep cruising along with the show and get back into the Stanley Cup final. It's the Coach's Room, and it's brought to you by Budweiser. Budweiser is encouraging buds to make time for the playoffs, not excuses. Every goal, every win is better enjoyed with your buds. So phone a bud, text a bud, and call out their excuses for bailing on the playoffs. When it's springtime, it's go time with Budweiser. John Goyens, former QMJHL head coach, joins us for a little film breakdown of the first two games of this Stanley Cup final. And let's start with the Florida Panthers. John, everyone who's been following these last few runs for the Cats knows they love to dump and chase. They love to grind down the other team's defensemen, play that physical style. I guess my question is, against this Oilers team, playing them a second time around in the Cup final, are they doing it a little bit too much?
Listen, they're still near the top of the league in the playoffs, pardon me, and just like they were in the regular season for teams that have a high rate of dumping. And there are times, and you're going to see in these clips coming up soon, there are times where they could create some 2-on-1s. They could affect the play differently. Instead of skating in lines, maybe they, what they call, climb across the two defensemen through the neutral zone, forcing them to maybe bump into each other, not be able to gap up as well, take certain time and space to their advantage instead of always going, let's get to the red and hammer it deep, because there's times where by the time someone decides to dump it in at the red, there's nobody going in with speed or not enough numbers going in with speed. So I think that, it's a small tweak in a lot of ways, but they're clearly defined here in these upcoming clips. So let's let them roll. So you're going to see this is a tag up regroup, right? They're changing. You got to go to the middle guys because they've created a gap for themselves. You do a dump and change, and you allow the guys that were changing at the bench jump on and defend. Here, most teams, they want that dump in, but a little dink pass right off the yellow dasher, I would rather that puck on Reinhardt's stick than on an Edmonton Oilers defenseman stick. And you create a little bit more certainty on certain entries. Here, carry inside dots. You have space before you get angled out. What happens? Only Varhegi really has a ton of speed. Edmonton gets 4 versus 2. They close it off. So now you're going from the D zone. Here's one option. Kick it and then follow your kick out pass to create a 2-on-1. Or carry the puck across, create another 2-on-1. Sure, Varhegi gets this puck and he creates a little bit of possession, but quickly it becomes 2 versus 4. Here again, middle pass wide open. You would create 2 2-on-1s. Instead, 85-foot wide pass creates 1-on-1 situations, forcing Forsling to dump it. So you're relinquishing possession when you don't need to. And right here, you got to play a little give and go, a little pitch and catch here, because if you have the puck inside dots, it forces Edmonton to shift, and you don't always have to get it below the goal line. And this one is a little bit more egregious. Here's a give and go or kick it out to the wide guy. You had a clear 2-on-1 that you could have created with a ton of space, ton of gap right through the middle of the ice. And right here, we've seen what Mikula can do as a D jumping in the rush. Here, kick it out drive. Not too many guys are going to block number 77 middle driving to that net. So I think they could have that balance because their dumping rate is the highest in these playoffs, and Edmonton is adjusted by sagging back their D to get back to pucks.
Okay, so from a team that loves to dump the puck to a team that loathes to dump the puck in the Edmonton Oilers, they've made teams repeatedly pay with bad gaps in the neutral zone, yet they've been in a spot so far during these first 2 rounds where the Panthers have made them dump it in, and you can tell the Oilers don't like it. How can they recover more pucks and create more zone time?
Well, that's so, yeah, exactly. They're you got a Florida team that reloads and gets 5 guys, tight in the neutral zone and really tell you basically you're shit out of luck. You have to place it. So there are times where Edmonton doesn't put it in a favorable position because there is place and chase instead of just hammering it in. The other part is maybe getting guys, multiple players, to slash into spots, because what's happening is Florida collapses 4 guys super, super tight, and then they want to go, just like I did last year on this exact same show last year. They don't want to go to the weak side as much as possible unless they draw the weak side forechecker in. So they're going to suck 3 Edmonton Oilers forecheckers deep, and it's a couple, again, little bump passes, little dink passes, and next thing you know, they're out. So Edmonton's got to find ways to get multiple numbers quickly to spots and dump them in favorable ways. If not, Florida is going to continue to break out the way they do. And on top of it, Edmonton is down almost 2 full minutes of offensive zone possession time in the playoffs, in this series compared to their regular season numbers. So let's fire up the clips and we'll see the examples of forecheck versus breakout. So here, Mikula, shit sandwich, he stumbles, right? But look how quickly 4 guys get real tight, right? And it's bump pass, little short pass, even Marchand bailed there, and then it was up and out. Here, 5 guys. You have no choice. You got to get this deep. Again, Mikula pivots. He's going to absorb a little contact with McDavid, but look at the options, and Boquist knows I'm not even an option on the weak side. So he could collapse, and again, little bump passes, little area passes, and this one leads to an odd man rush with a shot from Gadjevich. So another dump in. Now it's 1 versus 3. So you could absorb a little contact. You could kick it one way. You got Forsling glancing to the middle. You got Nosek protecting the middle net front, and it's outnumbered and it's little bumps. It's not the sexiest of breakouts here. Jones going to look for a reverse, but because the Fords sucked in the weak side forecheck, Marchand was available on the weak side for a mini rim. Again, chip it out, protect. Now watch what Tkachuk does. I'm not going to the wall. I'm going to pull. I'm going to pull guys out, so one chip creates time and space before the red line for that indirect pass. Once again, rim, let it go by you, and look how quickly they get inside, little chip, and then you're up already at the red line. So it's just continuously getting back, but boxing out. And here, if you don't get it deep, again, you still have 4 guys, 1 bump pass, 1 little space, a little bit of space up the wall, and they're up out the other way. Edmonton's got to find a way that when they place and chase or dump it, it's got to be 2 guys almost immediately getting to the puck at the same time.
So, John, one quick follow. The Oilers have really struggled in the second period through games 1 and 2 on home ice. There was a thought process that with the long change, Florida's hard rim was really creating a lot of problems for them. But Chris Knobloch poured some cold water on that and said, yeah, but still with the long change in the first overtime period, we managed things just fine. What's the solution for the Oilers? Why have you seen them struggle in the second period?
Sometimes it's, and we saw one clip right at the beginning, and that was in the first period, is bad changes. Like there are times where guys, the change is not good enough. Like I get guys get tired, they struggle, but why not skate to the closest door? Why not get off maybe when the play was in the neutral zone? Why not get off when the play was in the offensive zone? You can combat a lot of crap that can happen at your end when you have the long change. If you say, you know what, shit, I could stay on 10 seconds longer, or I could get off now and set up the next 5-man unit to be in a better position. So I agree with Knobloch. he probably didn't want to say something like that because you might be, on your players a little bit too much. But what you want to do is you just need better changes. If you get better changes, you got quicker, healthier legs, and you're not going to give up as much off of rims.
Tyler, you're muted.
There you go. John, you said Panthers in 5. I said Oilers in 5. I'm getting the sense we're both going to be wrong. I feel like this series is going deep. Would you change your prediction if you could? Frank said It's going deep. He's right. No, you're sticking Panthers in 5.
Yep.
All right. Interesting stuff. They'll need to win the next 3 in a row. And if they do, John, we will absolutely have you back for your victory lap. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, guys.
Man, I'm trying to think of all the things that I would do if, like, you give me something outlandish. I'll do that if any team wins this series in 5.
Yeah, if the Oilers, I said my prediction Oilers in 5 was kind of contingent on I thought the Oilers would have to win one they absolutely didn't deserve. That was probably game 2. Florida had so many looks in that overtime, and I was like, man, if Edmonton finds a way to get a bounce here and score, I felt like it would be a bit of a backbreaker in the series, but obviously that was not the case.
Look how close these first 2 games were. To think that someone is now going to reel off 3 in a row, I just don't see it. I'd still be shocked if someone wins 2 in a row.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair as well. I would bet on a split coming here in Florida. I want to ask you a quick Ask DFO here, Frank. We got this one in from Brian, who wanted to know how much do officials actually make adjustments through a series, and then he asked as well how abnormal is it, I guess, for teams to be going to the league, like Florida going with the pick plays and Edmonton talking about the goalie stuff. Is that abnormal, or does that happen in every Cup final?
It happens in every series, every morning of every game in the entire playoffs. The teams meet with the series supervisor and bring whatever points you want to bring to the table. How often are adjustments made? Well, there's different referees in every game. So naturally, there's very little that's the same game to game. I think there's certain things that they're told to be aware of that come and get communicated from the series supervisor. Short of that, I have always viewed, and I think general managers who have been in these meetings will tell you that it's all just lip service. Even if you brought 15 clips to the series supervisor, they're just listening to you vent. It's a glorified therapy session and nothing's changing after the fact.
Fair enough. Let's move along to our daily bets brought to you by Bet365. Want to get in on the action for this series? At Bet365, they got you. Game props, player props, totals, and money line. Bet365, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Download the app, get in on the game. Must be 19 or older. Shot prop parlay. Evan Bouchard has 15 shots through 2 games in this Cup final. Sam Reinhart has 9, so take them each to get at least 3 tonight, and it's plus 220. So just the shot prop parlay for me, Frank, although I think I'm leaning under. These, at some point, we're getting a 3-1, 3-0 game, aren't we?
Couldn't agree more. I think with the way these teams play, Florida's going to have one game where Edmonton's going to struggle to score because Bobrovsky also, in addition to cracking down on the Oilers' chances, Bobrovsky's just going to have a strong game. That's going to be the challenge for the Oilers, is making sure there's one of those games this series as opposed to multiple. And we'll see. I would lean with you toward under, but unders are for suckers.
Yeah, unders are lame. All right, let's get to our garbage time for today. Frank, you passed along a really nice video on your Twitter of a fan in Edmonton. I won't explain it. I'll just let everybody take a watch.
Do you want to buy Stanley Cup tickets for $1?
Stanley Cup tickets.
Do you like hockey?
Yeah.
Who's your team?
Edmonton.
How big of a fan are you?
I'm a big fan.
There's a game tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Who do they play?
Florida.
Who's going to win tonight?
Edmonton.
Have you been to a game before?
Nope.
What's your names?
Eric.
I'm Zach.
Nice to meet you.
Davin.
We're brothers.
What do you think's inside the box?
Oh.
I'll take a Stanley Cup ticket for $1.
Wayne Gretzky.
Wayne Gretzky gave wrong.
Him and his son Ty.
Gretzky.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
$2? The box is yours.
You'll not be home tonight because the Gretzky family inviting you. Stanley Cup game tonight. Are we going?
You're going.
We're going.
You're both going.
Really?
Yes.
We're going tonight.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Doug. Oh, I love you.
I got one more surprise for you, too. I got $1,000 cash
$1,000.
for you guys.
Oh, thank you.
What can you use the money for?
I ran some food. Love you, man. I would like to give you this.
What?
You can have this.
One?
Not all of it.
It's $1,000 cash.
Are you kidding me? I want to give you a hug.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa! Oh my goodness, you guys, I want to cry.
We're going to the Stanley Cup. Oh, yeah. The Lays of Bongo, baby. This is the best day of my life. Oh, yeah. How are you ready? I'm going. Oh, we want cup. When you touch it, it's making me say, oh, yeah. Make them pack the bag. It's time to move.
Frank, obviously a big shout out to the Gretzky family and Zachary Darianowski on Instagram, who films all of those. But that was just unreal.
So good. That's what life's all about, is bringing people along for the ride. And yeah, you're right. Kudos to Ty Gretzky and Wayne Gretzky for their generosity. And had a chance to spend some time with Wayne Gretzky last week in Edmonton. And it was just, I mean, you see videos like that and you hear the stories. There's no greater class individual that this sport has ever seen. So he lives it every day. And congratulations to those guys who got to hang out and enjoy a very memorable game.
And a win for the Oilers as well for them. All right, that is a wrap on today's edition of the show. Obviously, Game 3 right behind me here. We're only about 7.5 hours away from puck drop between the Oilers and Panthers, and we'll be back right here on DFO Live tomorrow to break it all down. Enjoy the hockey. We'll see you Tuesday. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content, from daily live shows with Frank Seravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.